Scott, welcome to the Full Circle podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If we can start off by just hearing a little bit about you. So a little bit about your role in your organization, what that organization does, and just a little bit about, your interests and your specific, areas that you spend time and focus.
Charlie, thanks so much. It's great to be with you. I appreciate the invite. I'm the president and CEO of Mitsubishi Electric Automation Incorporated. So we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Mitsubishi Electric Corporation, which is a very large, probably $37 billion U.S. dollar multinational company. I'm responsible for the factory automation division in the Americas, so both North, South America, and so on. It's primarily a commercial role, so we get most of our products from Japan. The products are manufactured in Japan, but we do some value-added manufacturing here in the Chicago area, and we service the products as well. So not only sales and marketing, but also service, support, and value-added manufacturing.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, and obviously, such a well-known brand, so big, and a crucial part in the Americas, as you say, of that or kind of electric and automation. So, also, Scott, I know that you've got a specific interest around neurodiversity and supporting young people and adults in that space. Tell us a little bit about that and where that focus came from.
Yeah, well, it really came from joining Mitsubishi Electric about a half dozen years ago. So we have a foundation, the Mitsubishi Electric Foundation, or the acronym is MEEF. And it's really a foundation across all the businesses in the United States. And the focus of the organization is around, the transition of people with disabilities to meaningful employment. So I think, very well aligned with what your organization is doing. I've developed a passion. In addition, my nephew, really both my nephews are neurodiverse. One's been, clinically diagnosed with autism. And so that's really led to me getting involved with some of the organizations that are related to this, that maybe grantees that the foundation has granted, made grants to, and so on.
Yeah, it's amazing. And tell us why it's important for organizations, not just the right thing to do, but important for organizations to be inclusive and include everyone, regardless of their background, but especially, we're talking about those who are not neurotypical.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you asking the question, first of all. You're absolutely right. There's more to it than just doing the right thing. And I think, corporations, businesses, companies today, they get the fact that this is the right thing to do, to employ individuals with disabilities or people that are neurodiverse. But what I think a lot of organizations don't yet fully understand is that it's good for business, that particularly people that are neurodiverse, people with autism on the spectrum, can do certain jobs extremely well. In fact, better than neurotypical individuals, particularly in areas like quality control, quality assurance, data services, even cybersecurity validation, and so on. I think those are areas where people on the spectrum can really have meaningful employment. And I think it's important to get the message out there. So I do appreciate you asking that.
Yeah. No, I mean, so what you're saying is it's so often, whether it's people who maybe are neurodiverse or from any background, their life experience can be so valuable in different ways in organizations and in society. And I think it sounds like, hopefully more and more organizations are realizing that it is the right thing to do, to be inclusive and to not just hire people who are like you or who went to your college or your background, but also hire anyone, and they'll bring so much to your organization that maybe you're not even aware of.
Yeah, it's essentially good for business. It really is. And the level of accommodation, I think people think, well, we have to have all these accommodations and it's really going to change our organization. That's not really true. There are some accommodations that need to take place, particularly with neurodiversity and so on. But what I found and through just you know being in this environment is that it really has a substantial impact on your neurotypical employees culturally. It really generates a more inclusive culture where everyone's got everyone's back, everyone's helping out, and so on. And that's really, heartwarming to see when you can take an organization and make it more of a better teamwork, better inclusivity, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, happy team members are productive and effective team members. And, if everyone's included, feels a sense of belonging, it makes sense, right? And as you say, like that's what Circl is all about, trying to promote that, those cultures and that style of leadership. Um, so as Circl is all about the future of leadership and trying to promote these things that we're talking about and getting people through our course and getting people learning about different careers. You are a leader now, but you didn't start. You weren't, straight out of education and then a leader. Tell us what you were doing as an 18 to 24-year-old. What were your interests? What were your aspirations? And what were your challenges as well?
Yeah, it's interesting thinking back quite a ways, but I think I was actually, and I understand this is pretty common in the UK. My parents actually had me tested, when I was in high school as to, what career path I should take, and apparently the feedback was this person should be in business, and partially because of my grandmother's influence and so on, I went into architecture. And I didn't really, at the end of the day, and I went through 4 years of undergraduate school doing that, I didn't like the subjectivity as much. I still have a creative side. I like design. When we redid our home, I was very involved in the creative part of it and so on. But I like things that are more objective. The results are the results, and so on. And so I gravitated back to what that testing, said originally, and that is that I should be in business. And I started in sales. I enjoy very much interacting with people, and I enjoy the sales process. And even when I was a Boy Scout, my greatest memory of being a Boy Scout was raising money by selling products door to door. Something that a lot of people would not want to do. They'd be intimidated by it or shy away from it. Of course, the Boy Scout uniform kind of gives you a little bit of an entree there, but still, it's a bit challenging, and I really enjoyed it. I excelled at it. So, kind of told me that business sales is where I should focus, and that's what I did after I graduated from college.
Yes, I mean, so much of it is about your confidence and your people skills, right? Like sales, it's about persuasion and influence, and also just being ready to be rejected, I guess. I imagine that you probably had quite a few rejections at doorsteps.
You do. It's not 100%. I also, when I was in college, I sold liquid lawn care services. Where they come out, spray the yard and so on. And that was also essentially, I would during the day go out and measure the lawn and so on, and put a little flyer in the door, and then I would follow up in the evening with something even maybe more intimidating. That is calling someone on the phone, and so I think all that, whether it's door to door selling or on the phone interacting with people, I think you're exactly right. It builds confidence, it builds skills, and I think that really helped me in my career. I've always felt that people that are, more people and enjoy interacting with people, make really good leaders. And then if you combine that with the business or financial skills and so on, you see a lot of successful people that have that kind of background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other thing as well is, the ability to build that resilience, I think, because a lot of the time as a leader, you can't always be liked, I suppose. You've got to got to make some just tough decisions that not everyone's going to be on board with. So tell us a little bit about how you transitioned from I suppose a salesperson, individual contributor, to leadership roles, and maybe some of the toughest things that you had to kind of overcome or learn about that.
I think the key there is intellectual curiosity and not just staying in your lane. When you're a salesperson, you can be one dimensional. Just, I want to get the order and so on. But there were a lot of instances in which, contracts were involved, agreements were involved. And, I became somewhat proficient at understanding terms and conditions and how that the risk involved with a business, even though I was in sales. And I really, tried to understand the products. And I also tried to understand the customers' businesses, what they were in, what they really wanted to accomplish. And then I started connecting the dots between, hey, we were successful here. This company does something similar. Maybe they would like what we have to offer as well. So I think essentially what I would recommend to anyone is have a strong sense of intellectual curiosity, ask questions, want to learn, even outside of your lane. I think regardless of what function you're in, I think that's really important because ultimately business leaders are very well-rounded. They do multiple things. They do multiple things well. They understand a lot of different aspects of business.
Mm-hmm. Here's a bit of a tricky one. Feel free to sidestep it if you want to, but being well-rounded is so important as a business leader. But you can't be amazing at everything. So where would you say are your kind of areas that could be even better, or that you'd still work on, that you'd still want to improve?
Well, I'm definitely more of a commercial leader. And so on the operational side, be it manufacturing or engineering, technical development and so on, that's not my strongest suit. I've learned a lot, enough to be able to positively impact an organization and lead people in those areas. But I would always recommend for people to, first of all, as you're pointing out, understand what your strengths are and your weaknesses are, and then strive to surround yourself. And this has been written a lot about. Surround yourself with people that exhibit strengths in the area that maybe are your short suit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's the leader isn't the person who has all the answers. They're kind of empowering others and helping them get to the answers and hiring the experts.
Well, if I could, that's a great point. Excellent point. I think leadership is all about that, is making everyone, the best version of themselves. And what that requires is open dialogue. And I encourage in meetings and so on for people to challenge me. If I say something and they disagree, you don't want it done for political reasons. But if someone legitimately disagrees and has another point of view, I want to hear it. And in fact, I think it's important to reward that kind of behavior. Again, for the right reasons, but if someone disagrees or someone brings up alternative points, I always make a habit of not only complimenting that individual in the meeting, but, thanking them afterwards for coming up with a different point of view. I think that's critical for organizations to have that give and take.
Yeah, so important. And it's such a great message for our future leaders, for the young people on the Circl program. A couple more questions just around leadership and your style, and, coming back to the kind of conversation we had about inclusion at the beginning. Where, if at all, do you think kindness plays a role in business leadership?
Yeah, I think the word I use is respect, and that can be kindness in a lot of ways. It's interesting. I don't know if you probably know Steve Carell, the actor here that's been on The Office, the U.S. version of The Office, and so on. And he did a graduation speech at Northwestern University, where I actually went to graduate school, and his speech was about kindness and how important it is to demonstrate kindness. And like I said, I think respect goes hand in hand with kindness. If you you can't really be kind if you don't show respect to people. And I think that's really important. We pride ourselves here in our organization of showing respect. So, from a business leader perspective, how does that really manifest itself? I think respect is number one. Don't dismiss people's opinions and so on, like I was talking about earlier. Encourage dialogue, encourage things, and so on, and don't belittle people or whatever for an opinion that may be contrary to your own. Show that respect. And you talked about earlier about making tough decisions and so on. I think the key thing, like if you're, we're in a bad economy right now, particularly in capital goods. And so we've had to make some adjustments over the past year. And I think you always need to do it with humility and respect. And I think in the long run, people will respect you and your organization for doing that, because I think most people understand the realities of business and the realities of economics and so on. But what they can't understand is people that are not respectful throughout that process.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you need to be firm to be kind, and being respectful of anyone is a way of manifesting that kindness. So let's move on to a little bit more sort of specific advice for our audience. Thinking about everything that you've said and all of your experiences. So 18 to 24-year-olds starting out in their careers, in their, in business or other organizations, wanting to become future leaders, like the leaders of these organizations, to hopefully continue and disseminate this style of leadership to make the world a better place and make organizations more effective. What would you be saying to them are the top things to be thinking about?
I think I already touched on the aspect of intellectual curiosity. Always ask questions, challenge opinions in a respectful way when it's appropriate. And I think the right business leaders will have a tremendous amount of respect for people that do that. So a healthy degree of intellectual curiosity. I think, be more focused on the work and the performance, and not necessarily your personal aspirations. I do think that people in my position, they want people that are aspirational, but they don't want people that wear it on their sleeve. They want people that really perform their jobs well and their functions. And, there's been a lot of I've read stuff in the media and so on, certainly over the last several years, about people being much more intentional about asking for raises, asking for promotions, and so on. I think it is important to put your hand up, and particularly when there's opportunities, particularly when you have a discussion with your manager or leadership about, hey, your future, what do you want to do? You need to be very open, and so on. But don't wear it on your sleeve in terms of your aspirations greater than your work performance or your focus on your work. I'll be honest, in my entire career, I can't really say there was one time when I either asked for a raise of X percent or tried to leverage my position and so on. I just really focused on doing the absolutely best job I could do at the time. And people, good business leaders, good companies recognize performance. They can see the people that are really doing a good job and driving the business forward. The other thing I would say is, don't make it all about performance. Relationships are important too. And this was kind of a misstep that I had earlier in my career. I thought it was all about results, all about performance. But the fact of the matter is, you can't get the results without relationships. And, you want to have a healthy mix of developing relationships with people. And this is regardless of what culture you're in. I lived in China for 10 years, and people talked about, relationships are king. But I think they're important in the West as well. They're important in the UK. They're important in the United States. You've got to have those relationships to get things done. And you mentioned persuasion earlier. I think the ability to persuade and influence which is quite tricky. I mean, you can't just drive a hammer and hit people over the head and say we're going to do this. You have to tell them what's in it for them. You have to make it something they want to do, and that does require relationships, and it requires a high degree of persuasion.
Mm. Yeah, so important. It's that kind of magic combination and getting the right amount of the intentionality for yourself, building relationships and doing things without expecting reciprocity, which ironically I think then quite often creates reciprocity later, like goodwill and good karma and all those kind of
It
things.
does. People remember, and people develop a level of trust for others. And it may not be obvious, as you're pointing out at the moment, but particularly business leaders, they catalog things. They remember instances and so on, and they build a level of trust over time. Of course, that can be destroyed, but usually people that have really good intentions and want to do a good job and so on are going to be recognized for that.
Well, Scott, we could talk a lot more. I'm sure there's so many more stories and things, especially from all of your your different experiences and different cultures. But maybe we'll save that for another conversation. But just want to say a huge thanks for taking the time to join us and to talk about your passions and about your leadership experience. If you were to leave our audience with one final thought, what would that be?
Wow, only one. And this is kind of coming more from my background, but I would say stay close to the customer. I was once, I had a meeting with an iconic sales leader at a company I worked for earlier in my career, and I asked a very similar question, and that's the answer that he gave me, and it's proven to be so true. The customers will tell you what's good about your company, what's not good about your company, what you need to improve. They'll tell you about the market. And by building that relationship and staying close to them, you build retention as well, which is so critical. So stay close to the customer.
Amazing. Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Charlie.